I'm on the overnight train, nearly at the end of my journey. It's a 15-hour journey from Milan to Amsterdam. But I do like this way of travelling. You can sleep and all that. And it's quite relaxing. But I was just also coming to the end of the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and it gets a bit intense at the end, I have to say. And I recently, in Germany, gave a talk on design constraints and integrity, and everything is kind of connected, I'm finding. So here's a thing I wanted to do with the video, and it was part of the theme of my talk in Germany, and that is that the question of what defines who you are. In fact, what distinguishes us from each other? What is the cause of our identity? And I feel there's a very strong connection here to the concept of quality in Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance. Because it's like saying, what are our qualities? What are the qualities that define us? Or rather to say that who we are is defined by our qualities. And the bit that I've got to add to this is that our qualities are defined by the constraints on how we behave, and on how we think, and on how we reason. It's like we invent ourselves. Whether values and judgments, decisions that we make, constraints, rules, whatever you want to call them, whether they are things we're exposed to via our parents, via the society, via our education systems. Sure, they're presented, but we choose the ones that we wish to apply to ourselves. We all mould ourselves. We all create ourselves from a series of decisions that we make about how to live our lives. And if you think about it, if we removed these value judgments from each of us, we would all be the same. And I find that quite amazing, really. It's almost like that kind of logic or reasoning or constraints upon existence or analysis of the way things should be, which are all different ways of saying constraints, really, if you think about it. That all these things that are out there, that are kind of a left brain kind of activity, tied up with language and reasoning and intellect, they are the very things that cause us all to become separate. The theme in there at the moment is loneliness. And Persig is reflecting on how in this increasingly technologically driven society, people are in some way more lonely, even if they are physically close to each other. There's kind of like a spiritual or psychic loneliness. And maybe part of the problem is this overexertion of the left brain, this over-analysis, this over-constraint, this insistence on trying to form a strong identity to such an extreme that we all become compartmentalized in our own framework of existence and cannot actually relate so well to anybody else's. And that in fact we end up with this kind of irony that when you are able to relate to somebody through such a complexly rigid framework, it isn't worth doing because you've just met yourself. And how lonely could that be? I think it's very useful for us to have egos and have frameworks and constraints to craft or sculpt ourselves. Of course, that's what we all do and what we should do. It's part and parcel of living in this physical world. But you can go too far. You can go to the point where in the end you are all alone. Just one singular view on reality that can only relate to any identical view. And since those viewpoints and constraints are the things that define us, a perfect match, and you're all alone.